All righty, good evening. Welcome to the Price of Your Vote, our panel discussion today. My name is Verlaine Quinniey. I'm the founder and CEO of Connect 757, and we focus on bringing Black young professionals together throughout Hampton Roads through social networking events. So I would like to welcome you guys, and I will be co-moderating with Danica Royster.
Hey everybody, my name is Danica Royster. I'm a member of the Connect 757, great friend of Verlaine, and I just wanted to, well, I guess I should prompt my business too. Junior partner at First Genesis of Virginia, a Black-owned financial planning firm based here in Norfolk, Virginia. And I wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight and participating in this Zoom. What brought about this Zoom and this conversation had been a lot of dialogue, not only regarding the presidential election, but just the state of Black America and this idea that your vote means something. And that means a lot of things to different people. So what we wanted to do is, instead of focusing, strictly on the presidential election, talking about why it matters for us as people to vote. And of course, we all know the historical context of that. But in today's date and time, you may come across a millennial or a generational Z person, and the concept has been lost. So what we really wanted to talk about is what is at stake, what it means, and the power that we have, as well as making sure that we're holding our public officials accountable. And with that, we're going to lead into some brief introductions from our panel, and we'll start with Commissioner Tiffany Boyle.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be a part of this panel and get to see some faces I do know, some faces I see, on social media. So that's always good. I'm Tiffany Boyle, Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Newport News. I was elected in 2018, so I'm still in my first term, but it's quickly coming up to re-election time next year. And again, just happy to be here.
Okay, next we're going to have Councilwoman Angela Williams-Graves.
So good evening, everyone. I do appreciate the invitation to be here. My name is Angela Williams-Graves. I'm City Councilwoman in the greatest and most fantastic city in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that is Norfolk, Virginia. I'm just a little biased here. I was born and raised here in Norfolk and am serving, this is my 10th year serving as a council member. I have survived 4 elections, and I am honored to be on this panel with such esteemed guests. And I hope that we will contribute something to the viewers that will inspire them and make them want to get involved, as well as go out and vote.
Next, we have Dr. Bellamy.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Wes Bellamy. I'm the former Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, and currently the Political Science Department Chairman at the Virginia State University. I know a lot of y'all are down there in 757, a little state in Hampton and everywhere else, but it's all good. Now, I like to throw love. And I also serve as a national co-chair for Our Black Party, which is a political platform that focuses on centering the needs of Black folk. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you all for having me.
Next, we have Joe Dillard.
How you guys doing? My name is Joe Dillard. I was writing as you guys were talking because I think we've already had some alternative facts shared by Dr. Bellamy. I'm a graduate of the only HBCU in Virginia, the Norfolk State University.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wanted to get that out first. I'm the president of the Norfolk NAACP. I'm currently actually on my last term, so this is coming January. The Norfolk NAACP will have a new president, which we haven't had in 7 years. So that's a good thing. And just looking forward to the future of seeing what this group can discuss and what we can get out and turn out the vote.
Mr. Dillard, you're forgetting a term. You're Professor Dillard.
I was granted the opportunity to also teach in the political science department at Virginia State University, though I'm a graduate from the Norfolk State University. Thank you, boss, Dr. Bellamy.
Nobody's trying to mess up nobody's checks. So on to you, Sareeta.
Hey, everybody. First, I would like to say thank you guys for this wonderful event that you're having tonight. I see so many familiar faces. Just glad to be back in the 757 a little bit. I went to Norfolk State University. I was there for years, served as Vice President of the Urban League Young Professionals, moved to DC after graduate school to participate in the Capital Cities Fellows Program, and then landed a job working for DC Mayor Muriel Bowser for her first 4 years. And now I'm on the Hill and I manage the funds that keep the members of the House and Senate safe. So I'm just glad to be here to talk with you guys. We got 21 days, I think Jason said. So we have to get these people out here to vote, but most importantly, help them to understand why it is important to vote. So looking forward to a great dialogue tonight.
And last but not least, Jason Inge.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm glad to be on this distinguished panel with so much melanin on here. I'm just proud to see everybody, and everybody has been working hard throughout the Commonwealth. I'm Jason Inge. I'm the current president for the Urban League of Hampton Roads Young Professionals. And also I live here in the city of Norfolk as well, and a community leader. And I also sit on the state board for the Virginia Appraisal for real estate. I'm just glad to be here, and definitely here to have an engaging conversation about the things that we're doing and the price of our vote. We got 21 days. We got to make it happen.
So we're going to start the conversation off in regards to the census. And Angela's first question is for you. You are a major advocate for completing the census, which, if you all weren't aware, is over today. So if you have not completed the census, get on your phone or device either simultaneously or after and complete the census. Can you elaborate, Angela, on why completing the census is so crucial for the Black community?
Thank you. Well, here's the thing. I think many of us, and I'm going to go with, I'm an honorary millennial. Many of us honorary millennials, I grew up doing what my parents told me to do. I grew up in a household where we were active in voting. I voted for years for who my parents told me to vote for. When the census came around, it was like you had to do it. And so I grew up doing it. I didn't really understand. It wasn't until I was elected that I really understood what the census was and the value that the census provided. And so in very simplistic terms, it's a head count of everybody in the United States as of where they were on April 1st. And what that head count translates into is tax dollars, grant dollars, funding for things that are important for your community. All tax dollars are ultimately local tax dollars because they come, there's no federal citizenship, right? There's local citizenship. And so for every locality, for every dollar that you pay in federal money, then we have to compete as localities for those funds, for funding of programs like senior programs, after school programs, military funds, grant funds for highway construction, those types of things. The Pell Grant funds is another thing that we have to compete for. And those things are allocated according to the population, according to that head count. So that is when I started to understand fully, because the census had been done in 2010 when I just got elected. And so now I'm sitting, I forget where I was sitting in a conference, and they were talking about the census, and they were talking about the importance of it and all of the things all of the money that funnels down from Washington to the localities, and every single thing that is funded that is important to Black people. And so my colleague Tommy Smeagol had just recently been appointed as the chair of the Census Committee. And I remember texting him in that meeting going, hey, you need some help. Because this is really, really important to our community. And so if you haven't done your census, I'm going to look up the information to be able to provide to you with regard to the website and the phone number, that because you could have done it this year for the first time online and call in. Normally it's a fill out a form and mail it in. But if you haven't done it, somebody's come to your house and they've left a little piece of paper on your door. Make sure that you do that before 12 midnight tonight, because the current administration doesn't care about Black and brown people. and they want to ensure that we are undercounted so that we can be underfunded and further held back. So that's why the census is important.
And Angela, it's my2020census.gov for anybody who needs to take it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is going to be for Tiffany. Why do local and state elections matter, and how are the decisions being made there directly impacting our community?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to figure out why my mute button wasn't popping up, but I think you did it for me. I'm still learning Zoom, even though I'm on Zoom all the time. But so local elections do matter because the president, our US senators, our congressmen, they don't always drive down our same streets. You know, especially our US senators and our president, how often are they here, especially in the Hampton roads? Sometimes they don't send their kids to local schools like we send our kids to, but they do help get us federal funding. Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, Bobby Scott, they're all like really good at helping us, really good at that job and their job. But city council, our elected officials, they decide how money is spent. They decide what affects us. And when they change a local ordinance or a tax code, that goes into effect the next day. It goes into effect July, whenever their next fiscal year is. So it's a more direct impact. And so we have to think of the reality that, you know, federal policies impact our bigger economy, they impact our jobs, but bigger jobs, but those politicians don't feel the effect if the shipyard, you know, lays off 500 people. Newport News is gonna feel it, Norfolk is gonna feel it, the Hampton Roads is gonna feel that faster and more direct than the federal government is going to feel it. So it's also a different discussion. They have to work with however many other congressmen, like 400 something congressmen. They have to work with all the senators, and then they have to pass the bills back and forth. And how long does that take? So they have a different type of discussion that our local city council or our elected officials are going to have. And sometimes things that affect us are more time sensitive. So we need faster results. So when we only vote in bigger elections, like everybody's like, oh, we're gonna vote in the president, they get the most, they get the most votes, the most turnout. We're actually volunteering to be ignored. So it sounds silly, but it's true. So we have to vote in every election because every election is an important election.
Did anyone want to add anything to that or have had any experience as it relates to how you've seen local election turnout or maybe legislation that happened locally have an impact on the community or something that a lot of your constituents cared about and they want to share that? Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry about that. So yeah, to actually piggyback off of that, local elections matter. That's where the rubber hits the pavement on the road. We can talk about what President Trump and what Congress is doing, but it really comes down to our local elections and making sure that we're going out speaking to our city council, men and women, making sure that we're there in the meetings and advocating. That's where it really makes an impact. Councilwoman Graves can attest to that, being on the Norfolk City Council. Hey, that's where it really makes an impact. I mean, you know, Hampton Roads, we're really politically engaged here. And, you know, I commend Mark Warner, Senator Mark Warner, but really where the biggest impact is at our local elections. And Councilwoman Graves can attest to this. Hey, we don't get a lot of people to turn out for elections, for local elections, like we should. That's where we really got to make the impact in our school board meetings, our school board elections, our city council elections. That's where we can really, that's what us, Black and brown people, we can really hold the power at.
And I'll just jump in too, because Tiffany said something that was very just kind of hit home for me, is that like the president and, you know, some of our other higher elected officials that are in Congress don't always come here. And when they do, they're like in a motorcade. So they don't feel the speed bump. They don't feel the pothole. They don't feel any of those kinds of things. And I kind of liken Washington to, if anybody's ever watched that TV show, Undercover Boss, where the CEO has all they're at the board and they have all these great ideas, right? And they put all this stuff in motion, and then they have to go into this and actually carry out these rules and regulations that they have put forth for their employees. And some of them most of the time realize this is crazy. This really doesn't work. And so a lot of times that's how I kind of see Washington. They have these great and grandiose ideas, but in reality, they all cost money and they all take people and they all affect people. And sometimes I just think that because of the distance, and I think we're fortunate, we get to see Bobby Scott, we get to see Mark Warner, we get to see our representatives because we're on the East Coast and so are they. But there can be this huge disconnect between what the constituency wants and what the federal government gets. Now, the last thing I'll say is this: we don't always agree. Constituents and elected officials don't always agree. And so there are also avenues if constituents feel very strongly for or against something and their local city council votes for it or against it, that individuals as voting registered voters and constituents can take in order to overturn those things that they don't like or that they feel like the council got wrong. So it's a process and we want everybody to be engaged.
Next question is for Dr. Bellamy. So someone wants to run for office and get involved. As Angela just said, we are, you might have a city council person, a mayor, whomever, and you're like, I don't like them. I need them out of here and I feel like I could do a better job. But they have no experience in politics or law. They just are passionate about their community. What are some resources, organizations, or a process you would say that they should engage in to get involved?
Well, I think that's a great question. The first thing that I would encourage everyone to do is actually take a look at your local city council meeting. And honestly, you can find and gain a great deal of experience by serving on your local boards and commissions, i.e. one of the more impactful ones that not everybody gets a chance to be on. But when you think about commissions such as the Planning Commission, Housing Authority Board, Zoning Commission, things of that nature, have a great deal of influence. They're not the quote unquote sexy boards. They're not the ones that everybody like to talk about, but they have a tremendous amount of influence, not only in the community, but the long-term effects and plans within your community. I think when we talk about running for office and getting into electoral politics, specifically from a local level, I can say when I ran for office and eventually won my election and became the vice mayor in Charlottesville, I initially didn't have a great deal of experience. I'm not from Charlottesville originally, so there was an uphill battle there to a certain extent. But I think whenever we have the opportunity to build community and show people that we genuinely care about the issues, but understand the issues, and then lastly, we cannot be afraid of our own people. I'm an individual who just personally believes, and I love my people. I'm never going to be afraid of my people, and I do believe that my people will vote, regardless of what political operatives and others will say. So I kind of lend and tend my thought process towards making sure that we tap into our own communities, we build up ourselves first, and understand that there's nothing wrong with us supporting, loving, and centering our people while making sure that we serve the needs of all communities. So those are kind of my steps. If I could just say one more thing, or two more things. One, shout out to my brother Hamilton Grant, South Carolina State Bulldog, the other greatest HBCU. He's joining us from South Carolina, so shout out to him. And secondly, though, I would say this, for anyone looking to run for office, in all seriousness, one thing that we often underestimate and don't understand the power of is the budget. You asked a question previously about what are some legislation we passed. I passed something called the Equity Package, which was nearly $4.5 million in resources to underserved communities within our city of Charlottesville. The budget literally will make or break all of our communities. Right. A lot of the issues that we have, they come back down to resource allocation. If we're not having resources allocated to the communities and the endeavors that have a positive impact on our communities, then we see the stagnation across our communities. The more in which we understand the budget, the more in which we then have the opportunity to be able to speak intelligently about the true needs that need to be met and how we can allocate those funds to get them to where they need to be to address our issues and concerns.
So the next question I wanted to roll into, and everyone can speak on this, is, there are several takeaways from the Breonna Taylor case. Daniel Cameron is the Attorney General. And as we all know, and you can say you agree with me or not, I'm saying this, all skin folk ain't kin folk. And he didn't miraculously get in office. He didn't just assume this position. Would you say that this is an unfortunate example of why representation is important and why being Black and elected is not enough? You also need to be effective. And from your experience and what everyone got a chance to view, would you also say this is also a moment where people need to take inventory and realize this is why showing up for jury duty is important? This is for the entire panel, anyone who wants to start.
Well, I would say, one, we have to be cognizant that Black is not monolithic. We come in a lot of shapes, sizes, ideologies, skin tones, and so forth. So Mr. Cameron, I've had the opportunity to meet the gentleman. I'm gonna cut it there. He has a different ideology than some of the folks who I know or I may be aligned with, and that's okay. That's his prerogative. But I think oftentimes we see individuals like Mr. Cameron and they make decisions like saying things as if they were confined by the law and they weren't able to do X, Y, and Z, and we get mad at him. But honestly, Daniel Cameron is a manifestation of the systems that have been in place. We actually talk about this, and we talk about this in my book, my new book, When White Supremacy Knocks Fight Back, how white people can use their privilege, how Black people can use their power. And essentially, Joe is laughing, but in all seriousness, the systems that are in place allow for Daniel Cameron to make the decisions that he made. And when individuals say things like defund the police and we need to build the systems anew and whatnot, many of us take a position. I'm not going to say many of us. Some of us take positions in which, oh, that sounds crazy and the language is bad and so forth. But I want you all to ask yourself, if you look at this system that's been in place literally for nearly 400 years, when has it ever been beneficial for Black folk? So why would we expect a system that was never created for us to somehow miraculously benefit us just because there is one of us in this position? It doesn't work that way. So we have to look at changing these systems that cannot be reformed, they must be built anew. And I wonder if, opposed to us focusing our energy on Mr. Cameron, if we have the ability and the willpower and the wherewithal to focus our energy on changing these systems and dream and then bring to fruition what a different system may look like. That's the real question, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Wes, and I just want to take the jury duty piece of it because a jury is supposed to be like a trial of your peers, right? And so I've had to testify in court cases, and I've seen the jury pool. And I have had friends who have been trying to get out of jury duty. And I think that until we take that seriously and show up for jury duty, folks are never going to get a jury of your peers. I would go a little bit further, and maybe it's a conspiracy theory and maybe it's not, but in the jury screening process, a lot of times some of the questions are with regard to interactions with the police, interactions with law enforcement. And so some of these negative interactions that happen for no reason with law enforcement and Black men and Black women may even be designed to ultimately disqualify folks from jury duty. If you show up to jury duty and you're Black and you're willing and you're able, but somebody busted in your house for no reason, or you have been targeted or racially profiled, 9 times out of 10, if it's a criminal trial, you're going to be disqualified because you may have a bias or perceived to have a bias towards the police. So I think it's very important for individuals to show up to jury duty. It doesn't pay nearly enough for people taking a day off from work. I know my day is worth more than $25, but it's somebody's life at stake. It's somebody's future that's at stake. And if you were the defendant or the perpetrator or whichever one it is that's on trial, if you were the person on trial, you would want somebody to show up for you. You would want your peers to show up and pay attention and listen to the evidence and do that for you. So I think it's really important.
I agree with Councilwoman Graves on that, and also Dr. Bellamy. We have to really, this system was not built for us. We know that we built this nation, but The system was there to keep us in the place that we were, and it was not to benefit us. So sometimes, hey, we got to tear down the building and rebuild it from the ground up. Let's be real. And then not only that, to add to that, Black folks are not just on one bandwidth, one particular party. We come in all different shapes, sizes, and textures. Like Dr. Bellamy said, this is not the only attorney general in Kentucky that's like this. We have people in our own community, attorneys, and in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office in our various communities, and the 757 that are just like this. That say, oh, the law keeps me from prosecuting. No, you are the chief prosecutor. You have the authority to hold police officers and our law enforcement personnel accountable. And then that also comes to us showing up for jury duty. And then not only that, holding everybody accountable. Here in Virginia, your Commonwealth attorney is elected. So making sure you elect the right people. Your judges are appointed by the General Assembly. Make sure that you elect the right people to your General Assembly to appoint these judges. And if they're not, then you get them out of the positions of power. And then you prepare somebody else that will actually take your community serious and will actually benefit our community, that understand that Black lives matter and it's not just within the confines of the law.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to add on to that? Okay, Joe, the next question is going to be for you. There's a popular phrase, this ain't your grandma's civil rights movement. So noting the significance of the NAACP in the 60s, what role does it play in the movement of today and what resources are available?
I think that's a great question. I also think it's a $1 million question. From my tenure with the NAACP, I think being a millennial, I was always excited to get involved as an individual, but not understanding what the NAACP stood for, if that makes sense. So for all young people in the Black Lives Matter movement, when I say that with the utmost respect to what each person's trying to do individually. You just have to realize who the NAACP is. So if the NAACP gets out and shuts down 264, it doesn't matter what it was for. The media is going to portray it as the NAACP was out causing harm or something reckless. I like to use a perfect example, Valerie. City Councilwoman Williams-Graves was talking earlier about jury duty. Dr. Bellamy was talking about how the system was never set up for you. I believe like 4 or 5 years ago, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Councilwoman. I think Councilwoman Graves came out and said something that was, she'll be praised for it. She said it today, but she said something about the KKK isn't in the robes anymore. They're your judges, they're your police officers, they're this, they're that. At the time, I'm going to take blame. I think I was like 25 years old. I was out of the country. I had an executive board call, right? And I don't even think I told you this, Dr. Bellamy. I had an executive board call, and I think it was 5 of us on the phone, and 3 of us agreed that we should make a statement against what she had already said, saying pretty much that we don't agree, all cops aren't, or whatever. We all know that they come in different forms now. But anyway, when we put that statement out, Dr. Bellamy and those listening, I was somewhere else, not even focused on what happened. And then I realized it made it to the Washington Post, not as Joe Dillard, you get, not as what I believed, not as what I thought. It was always NAACP condemns Councilwoman. You get what I'm saying? So when we say in today's movement, when I'm not out there or anyone from the Norfolk NAACP isn't out there marching or doing things, doesn't mean we're not working. But as you climb, and as Angelia has said it earlier, if you're a millennial or you're a millennial on the cuff, remember those type of organizations and those legacy groups like the NAACP may not be on the forefront as you might want them. Maybe we're not in Richmond throwing rocks at the police, because at the end of the day, everything that they did in the 60s for the NAACP to be relevant as it is today wasn't for us to get out here and tear it down. Now, if we want to create Black Lives Matter or different groups and use different arms to get out there and make those statements where we still protect the NAACP, I think that's where the focus is. And I've always seen this, Danica, and everyone's listening, it's just like, what is the NAACP doing locally? Well, I don't want Councilwoman Graves to be coming to try to bail me out of jail on a bond because I stood out there and the NAACP's on the front center fold of the paper because we did something wrong. Perfect example what happened in Portsmouth. They tore down the monument. It was not an NAACP sanctioned event or NAACP event, but everybody and their mama that was a member of the Portsmouth NAACP is now facing charges, were arrested, and they're coming. So it's always making sure that just because you don't see us on the forefront or organizing these events that are really relevant today, don't take it as that these organizations are old and archaic. It's just that they've stood up on solid ground. It's a real strong structure, and we have to figure out how to use them as resources, like you guys have asked. The NAACP will support anything like Black Lives Matters, these type of things, but leading the forefront, I think our grandparents, our parents did a great job of getting out there, putting holes in their shoes so we wouldn't have to.
Great answer. Sareeta, this question is for you. Shirley Chisholm said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." In this time where there's a movement for change, how can people go beyond the Facebook and Instagram posts and actually get involved? Because as you know, you have a lot of Instagram attorneys and Facebook organizers and a lot of opinions, but how do people actually now voice their opinions and actually show up?
Right, so I want to commend those, I call them Facebook social media activists, because they have passion, but you got to move from passion to action. And so what you need to realize is that you need to figure out what exactly you're passionate about, and then join organizations that are doing that particular work, right? So if you are excited about economic development or parks or youth or homelessness, find some organizations that are actually doing that work and put your energy, your support, your time behind them. Now, when it comes to politics and things, show up. Start, like I think Dr. Bellamy and I think Jason said earlier, and even maybe Joe, that you need to start showing up at these council meetings. We can't get on Facebook and all this stuff talking about what's going wrong if you're not actually showing up at the council meetings. They're there. They do allow for public discourse, and so you can get on there. If you have an opinion, you can let it be heard to the people who are actually changing the laws, writing the laws, and things of that nature. Show up at your community meetings. Here in DC, we have what they call neighborhood advisory commissions, and every little community has their representative. Show up if you have something going on in your neighborhood. Civic engagement meeting. When I was working for the mayor, she used to do what they call the budget engagement forums, where she would allow for residents to come and give their buy-in to what should happen in the budget. Now, if you're mad about the budget, but you had the opportunity to have your say in it and you don't show up, then that's a problem. So we need to start moving beyond just speaking and start moving. And then you need to start joining organizations like, I'm an urban leaguer. I've been an urban leaguer since I was at Norfolk State University. That's where I got my start. They taught me about advocacy. They taught me about fundraising. They taught me about marching to the polls and voter registration. So get behind these organizations, because these organizations will allow for you to be developed. I can walk in any room, stand proudly, speak, because I learned that from the Urban League. I also learned I learned how to write letters and do letter writing campaigns and all of these things. So I said all that to say, it is great to be passionate online. Wonderful, I love your passion, but you have to take that passion from online and you have to move and put some action behind it, because it's necessary. Young people have the power to do so much. Just from this phone right here, they can organize a whole movement. When I was working for the mayor, the March for Our Lives event, I had the opportunity to help organize that with the kids. These kids came, they got their own permits. Young people have the power, millennials have the power to change things. We just have to get organized, we have to show up, and we have to do the work and keep making noise.
Can I touch on that? With all due respect, I think I have a little bit of a different philosophy in that.
Oh, go ahead.
Meaning that I believe that there is a role for individuals to simply do what they do on social media and on social media only. And here's why. I think that for some individuals who are very good at doing data analysis, they're good at research policy, they're good at finding methods and doing things behind the scenes, there's a specific role for them. And that role is for them to utilize these weapons, these mechanisms that we have right here, to disseminate information, to hold individuals accountable on social media platforms, because we know it has become, quote unquote, the loudest voice in the room, i.e. social media is where most people go to get their information. So there's a role in this new era of activism for individuals to be specifically there. And then I'll couple that point with, and again, this is just my opinion, I'll couple that point with,
That's a good point, good point.
for some folks, we don't want them going into the city council. Like honestly, and you know, I'm not saying this, my daughter Stokely wants, I guess she's agreeing. But I want to, I can't reiterate the point enough. There are some individuals who we would prefer, and we need them to just type.
Right.
Their role isn't,
yeah.
their role is not to be in front of the cameras. Their role is not to be in front of the council persons. Their role is best suited in this movement for our lives to move forward, to stay on the keyboard and behind the screen, because that is where they're most effective, in all seriousness.
There you go.
So we all, as you alluded to, Ms. Sareeta, as you alluded to, we all have to find our role in this movement on a serious note. And your role may be in how this new movement has been so technology-based, to simply use technology to expedite whatever message we need to get out, organize in that collective manner, and research the way in which you know how to do so. Allow the other individuals who God may have called or provided a way for them to be able to speak in certain manners in certain places as they need to.
Right.
Well said.
But again, I mean, that's not always a popular opinion. That's just.
No, it's a good perspective, because sometimes my friend, she just said it, she said some people are very passionate and they're very, very loud, but oftentimes very, very wrong at the same time. So there is a role. I agree.
Loud and wrong. Just loud and wrong. Stay your
but
behind on this.
But passionate.
Stay on this. Keep your passion. Type it. Type it. Don't say it. Type it.
Let's transition to talking about voting and the importance of making a plan. What does that actually look like? How, making a plan, what does that look like? How do you create a plan? This question is for Jason. And how do you make a plan? And then what are the resources and what should we expect on election day?
Of course, there we go. Yes, so let's talk about making a plan, everybody. So making a plan, first off, I need you to go check your voter registration status right now. Today is the last day you were able to register to vote because there were technical difficulties with the Board of Elections, so a federal judge extended it till today. After today, that's it. It's a wrap. You can't do anything. So definitely check your voter registration. That's number one. Number two, find your polling place. Find out where you are supposed to go vote. I know, hey, I just recently moved. So I know my old polling place was, hey, in East Beach in Norfolk. And now my new polling place now is, actually, I don't even know since I moved over here. I just moved, it's like been 2 days. But definitely find your polling place. I already voted, so don't worry, y'all. And then also inform yourself. You need to educate yourself, and then reach out to people like Dr. Bellamy, reach out to Joe, reach out to Verlaine, reach out to Sareeta, reach out to myself on educating what's on the ballot, what's at stake. There are people here in Virginia Beach. What's on your ballot is not on the ballot here in Norfolk. So make sure you know what's on the ballot, and go to organizations who are nonpartisan that are giving you the facts on what's on the ballot and what the candidates' positions are on certain policies. For example, you can go to vote411.org, or you can go to the National Urban League's website or the NAACP. They will have nonpartisan information on both candidates and talking about and educating on you, so you can get the best informed decision that you need to make when you go to the polls. Now, let's be real. This election is the election of a lifetime. We know that. So bring snacks. And I mean, bring snacks so you can, in a folding chair, you're going to have to wait. Virginia is expected to have a high turnout come November 3rd. So make sure that you have enough time that you don't have to get out of line to go to work. Make sure you give yourself enough time and stay there. I don't care if they bring out the dogs and the water hydrants. You stand in that line. Like Joe said, we've had so many people who have put holes in their shoes walked,
Right.
got beaten, people who have been killed for us to have this right to vote. So we want to make sure that we honor their service and sacrifices, and we stay in that line. And know that when you're in that line, they cannot take you out that line. So make sure you understand that. And then also, when you check your polling station, make sure that that's the actual polling station. If somebody comes to your day on November the 3rd and say, oh, your polling station has changed, unless you go down there and there's something saying, hey, it's been changed and you looked it up, you need to go to where your polling station is. Don't believe what other people are saying. In Norfolk, yeah, correct. Olga did say, she said in Norfolk, the 4 branches of the public library actually have open early voting. So definitely go out to Pretlow Library. They do have opening early voting there. And then also, if you see something, say something. Speak up to your elected officials there and say, this is not right, this is wrong. Make sure you speak, get it on record, report. Now write this number down so that you know as well. So write down the number 1-866 our vote, or 1-866-687-8683. That's where you can report any type of election infractions or anything that's going on with elections. We are, yes.
You said 866
Yes.
687 8683.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I'll put it in the chat as well. Verlaine actually got it. Thank you so much. But yes, and we already have seen in Fairfax County where they've started intimidating voters going out to early polls. So expect that there are going to be people there that are going to try to deter you from voting with flying their false flags. Right. So just be on the lookout for that. And also know that, hey, if need be, just know that the sheriffs and law enforcement can come out to make sure and that nothing goes wrong at these polls. So like I said, know your polling station, voter registration, bring snacks, bring a chair, bring your family members. If you know, hey, your mother and father have not voted, hey, make sure that you take them with you down to the polls if they're in your same area. And this is for us, Black folks, brown folks. Make sure that you safely distance. You bring a mask, you bring hand sanitizer. Right. Look, we've already seen what COVID-19 is doing to our communities. So make sure that you're safe when you go out to the polls, and make sure that you're healthy. If you know that you're sick and you're not feeling well, hey, don't go out. You can still file for an emergency absentee ballot. So definitely you can do that. But if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have and definitely direct you. But yes.
So I'd like to add to that.
I was just saying, you can go to vote.org if you do not know where your polling location is. Yes. You can go to vote.org and put your address. They'll tell you exactly where you're supposed to be voting.
The other thing I'd like to add to that is don't wait until November 3rd to vote. If you feel like, if you feel like you're not certain that you're going to be able to vote, if there's some issue that you have, go ahead and get it done now. Like Jason indicated, and so I would clarify that Jason was probably able to vote even though he doesn't know where his polling precinct is.
Yeah,
he was able to go up until Monday. City Hall was our early voting polling location, and most people don't know that City Hall is a polling location for absentee ballot voting. And so we had no excuse absentee ballot voting in Virginia at City Hall. As of Monday, we did have 4 locations, and we do have 4 locations where people can go to vote, and I'll put them in the chat. But they're the Berkeley Community Center on Liberty Street, the Jordan Newby Library on Norchester Avenue, which is right off of Princess Anne Road, Lambert's Point Community Center, which is on West 42nd Street, and then the Pretlow Anchor Branch Library on West Ocean View Avenue. And so regardless of what city you live in Virginia, there should be, because the General Assembly allowed that this year for the very first time, for us to have satellite offices. So the truth of the matter really is there may be, lines, but there shouldn't be, because we have all of this time between now and November the 3rd to be able to go to a satellite location and be able to vote. And some of these are open until 7 o'clock. And then I believe we have some Saturday hours scheduled in here as well. So there's enough time for people to be able to go early, and vote. And then those votes will be counted. Those votes will be cast. Absentee ballot votes are counted. Some people think that they're only counted if it's a close election, but they're counted no matter what. But you want to go, you can go to City Hall or you can go to any of the 4 locations, and you want to vote early. You don't want to chance it.
Okay. I'm going to, first and foremost, thank you, Dr. Bellamy, for joining us. I know that you have multiple events, so he has to hop onto something else. But before he goes, I wanted to ask him a question as well as give you a chance to promote your book very quickly. So you can roll this all up into one. So the question is, one of the major topics of discussion is defunding the police. Could you explain what that means? Because there's been a lot of misconceptions about what that means and why that's something that people in our community are asking for.
Sure, yeah, so thank you all for having me, really appreciate it, and I'll be brief. Defunding the police is a simple equation in my personal estimation. When individuals say defund the police, I think you also will have many police officers tell you that they are not equipped to be able to handle all of the issues that they currently are asked to address, i.e. mental health situations. So if an individual gets a call and the person is having a mental breakdown, the police are really not equipped to be able to handle that situation properly. Situations revolving around homelessness, situations revolving around individual maybe falling asleep in his car and then they wind up being killed, like you saw at the Wendy's down in Atlanta. Essentially what defund the police means is that reallocate some of the sources, the enormous amount of resources that go to all of our local police budgets, reallocate or sift, S-I-F-T, a small portion, a small percentage of those resources and reallocate them to other resources, i.e. mental health services, i.e. social services, i.e. education systems and so forth. That's how we dismantle these systems. That's how we address these systems. That's how we dream a different manner of public safety. Again, it's important for us to understand there's a difference between public safety and policing. Policing derives from slave catching. I'm not an enslaved person. No one in my community is an enslaved person. We deserve to be treated with respect and we deserve to have public safety, not policing. So I'll end with that. There's more information in the book. We speak specifically about this particularly. You can purchase your copy of When White Supremacy Knocks, Fight Back, how white people can use their privilege, how Black people can use their power. On Amazon, it's available on both paperback as well as as well as the ebook. You can listen to the book on Audible. That'll be available on November 4th, or you can purchase it from a local vendor, such as our personal publishing company, StokelyScribesPublishing.com. Thank you, and I appreciate you all having me. Please tune in to the All Black Party Revolt Town Hall tonight at 9 p.m. And I'm going to jump on that right now. See y'all soon.
All right.
Hey, Wes, is it your voice? Is your book your
Well, I
voice?
was about to ask him that.
It is my voice. I narrated it personally. I've been in the studio dropping hot fire. So yeah, y'all cop that.
All that money.
All that. Get off here, Professor Dillard. Thank y'all in all seriousness. We appreciate y'all.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, I had to adjust real quick. So
Yeah, I will say this. Councilwoman Graves. So I looked it up. So I found out I'm actually in Rosemont Middle.
Okay.
Not voting. So I looked it up that quick. So it's just that easy. And then also,
You mind? Yeah.
Councilman Graves is my new Superward councilwoman. So
You mind now?
So this question is ironically great for your Superward counselor, who is also my councilwoman. Councilwoman Graves, what is your role and extent of power as a city councilwoman? I believe that, a lot of people think that when someone's on city council, they have this endless arm of power and influence. So do you mind speaking up a little bit more of that as it relates to a city council person's role, as well as if you wouldn't mind sharing some examples of the decisions that are made on the local level that people should be aware of, specifically Black and Brown people, regarding economic development, housing, and taxes, because like I said before, things just don't happen. A certain city doesn't just all of a sudden have a referendum for a certain infrastructure that might be coming. It didn't just happen overnight. Right. So do you mind speaking more about your role as a councilwoman, as well as the some of the things that happen. And of course, once again, the floor is open for our other panelists to chime in as well.
Well, it's very interesting that you use that as an example, because it kind of did just happen, but it didn't just happen. One of the things that we do as city council members is not us really. Let me back up. The city of Norfolk is a manager mayor form of government, which means that the manager runs the city, and the city manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city and all of the departments and all of the department heads that are within the city. That is pretty much codified in our city charter, that the manager's responsibility is to run the city. The council is more or less like the board of directors from a corporate perspective. And we hire the manager. There are a couple of other appointed positions, the city attorney, the real estate assessor, and the auditor that we hire and that work directly for the council. But other than that, everybody else works for the city of Norfolk that's run by the city manager. And so in that, we have an economic development office that receives multiple from credible to loony economic development proposals on everything underneath the sun, right? And so their job is to sift through, research and see if an issue is credible. Then they bring it to council if it's deemed to be credible and all the parties are, deemed to exist. They bring it to the council, and then we take public comment on it. We have discussion about it, and then we take a vote on it. Again, when I go back to everybody doesn't always agree, everybody doesn't always agree. And so citizens have through the Constitution, through the charter rather of the city of Norfolk, the ability to be able to reverse certain votes that a council will make based on certain criteria. And so a letter of intent from a particular developer, or a letter of interest, or a solicitation from any developer can come to the Economic Development Office and run its course. That's just one of the things that we do. On a larger scale of things don't just happen overnight. You're absolutely right. A lot of the things that you start to see now have been in planning and been talked about over the course of time. So what I would recommend to other people, for everybody to do, your council meeting in Norfolk has two formats. One, you have what's called an informal work session. And the informal work session is just that. It's where the quote unquote business is done publicly for the city. So I would recommend that individuals watch those informal sessions, because you kind of get an idea of, you get into the head of your council members and representatives and see what they think about things, how they perceive things, what kind of questions do they ask, what they're objecting to, what they're not objecting to. By the time it gets to the council table and you're in the formal session, most of the time, a lot of opinions have already been formulated based on the conversations that have been had in the informal conversation, in that informal session, and with other colleagues, council members, constituents, developers, the whole 9 yards. Our job is not to just be singularly focused. We have to look at things from a larger perspective of what is it going to do for the city? Is it going to be beneficial for the entire city? And then for me, because my ward is predominantly African American, how does that affect African Americans? Do we have jobs? Do we have opportunity? What does it do for our schools? And so those are the things that we do. I mean, other than tall grass, weeds, potholes, that kind of thing. And I mean weeds like grass, not the other kind, but potholes and that kind of thing. We do make decisions. I mean, like the 5 schools over a course of 5 years. That was something that was in the works for quite a period of time. Talking to projects come and go. One of the projects that I work on, and Joe Dillard serves with me on that committee, is on the St. Paul's Charles Advisory Committee for the redevelopment of downtown. That is a project that has come and gone and come and gone and come and gone for decades. And now finally it has come to a place where there's actually money to put with the project. And so now we can marry the two together and actually put some elbow grease behind it and make it happen. So there's a lot of power that your council members have over things that affect us day to day, from stoplights to large major development.
Good stuff.
So we want to take a moment to see if there's any questions from anyone that has joined us. I see there was one question dropped in the chat a little bit earlier, and it says, with the passing of legends and the movement happening across the country, is there a strong enough synergy between older leaders and younger leaders to create strong pipelines for Black leaders locally? And that's open to the panel to touch on. Y'all need me to read that one more time? I think I read it.
I was gonna say, repeat it again.
Okay. It says, with the passing of legends in the movement happening across the country, is there a strong enough synergy between older leaders and younger leaders to create strong pipelines for Black leaders locally?
So I can start, but I think it depends on who the leader is. I think there is a gap between the older elected officials, older community leaders, and the millennials and Generation Z. And I think there does need to be more of a bridging, needs to be more of a mentorship program where, if you know you've been in Congress or you've been a state senator or in the House of Delegates for however long, and eventually you're going to retire, then you should be looking for other people in your community that you feel you can share your expertise with and educate them. They might not be replace you, but they will at least be more well-equipped if they decide to run for that position. And things are going to be different. Millennials do things a little bit different than the baby boomers and the generation before them, but there's still some of that foundation, that institutional knowledge, ways that are still in effect that we need to know, and we don't need to just be submissive of them, but to really, embrace them and make them our own, and keep certain things that are working, and then certain things that need to be changed, to change it, but in a way that is good, in a way that's beneficial. I do know, in Newport News, our former mayor is working on a mentorship program where he sees that gap in Newport News and on the peninsula, where he's actively trying to reach younger people, and trying to match them up with the business leaders that I know when I was running would have loved to been in a room with and say, hey, I'm running. I need funding. And then two, teach me your ways, open those doors for me. Also being on boards. I know some of the younger people, we have a lot of student loan debt, we have kids, we have these things that are just on us where we might want to serve on a board, can't really afford to serve on certain boards if they're requiring $1,000 to $5,000 to be a board member, or the time constraints that it has. So just how do we bridge that gap? And I think that's what we really need. And it really depends on the older elected official or community leader.
I totally agree. I think sometimes elected office is like church. If you go to the old Baptist churches, sometimes you see the old deacons, and you got no disrespect to the older people, but you got the old deacon and the old trustee and the old deaconess that want to wear everything down to their ankles, right? And then when the young folk come in, they want to make you like the young old person, and you're not the young old person, you're the young person. Right. And so I think that there needs to, I don't know who initiates that, to be perfectly honest with you. I can tell you that I have regret and I have disappointment in my career. I have regret that there were some elder statesman type representatives who offered me, let's have coffee, let's have lunch. I'd love to sit and talk to you. And I, for whatever reason, either didn't take them seriously or didn't make the time. And so that's on me, that's not on them. Then there are some other elder statesmen who, that I thought would have reached out and they didn't. And they kind of did everything they could to block me. And so, and I've had that happen with women in politics. And so sometimes you feel like you just have to fend for yourself, and you get caught in that. Well, I'm just, you know what, I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna do what I think is right. If I fall, I fall. If I soar, I soar. But I'm just gonna try to do what I think is right. And I think that somewhere, the me who didn't take up the elder statesman on having coffee or having lunch should have done that before he passed away. And the me who was hurt by the other elder statesman that also passed away before I could, I should have gone to her maybe and said, hey, once I got elected, I know you kind of blew me off, but maybe is there anything that you can offer me that will help me to be a better elected official? And now all of that knowledge, whether they would have given it freely, or if I had to pull it out of them, is in the ground. It's all in the grave now. So I think that perhaps maybe our younger generation has to move forward a little bit more, and the older generation may have to, come to us a little bit more. Yeah, and just kind of meet in the middle, because they're not going to live forever, and then they don't want to be looking down from heaven, going, "What in the world are them cheering doing?" Well, we're doing. Y'all didn't teach us.
We know to do.
Yeah. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think mentorship and all that is important. And like Tiffany said, that there should be some type of bridge. There are some who are willing to take their time with you. I remember when I was in college, the late Senator Yvonne B. Miller, I was helping out with her campaign. She would always sit down and, what's your plan? What are you doing? That's before I even knew anything about politics. I was just trying to get community service hours. But she just took her time and she poured into you. And then I think that the older generation needs to take the time, build that bridge, pour into our younger leaders. And then they also need to know when to give that seat up, because sometimes they'll hold on. I do want to run for office one day, but I'm not going to be 95 trying to be down here running for something, because my energy is not the same. Whereas there's a young person that may be here, you can groom them, and then that person can keep on running your fight while you enjoy life. We shouldn't be running ourselves in the ground. But like Tiffany said, like Angelia said, we should definitely there should be some type of bridge. She said she wished she would have asked. If we need some help, we want to learn from somebody, we need to take the time. Hey, I'm Sareeta, or hey, I'm Jason, I'm Angelia. I'm interested in this. I see you're active in this. Do you have time to do coffee? All I need is 15 minutes of your time. And most of the time, if you do ask, they will make time for you. So even us that are starting to get, and like I said, I'm towards the latter end of that young professional. I'm not as quite young, but anytime there's a young person behind me that needs something or wants to do coffee or whatever, I take that time, because I remember being that girl that was hungry for something and just would ask. I'm still now, if I see somebody, hi, I'll see them on LinkedIn. Do you have 5 minutes to chat? People will give you 5 to 10, 15 minutes. But if you're a young person listening, when you get that time, make sure your questions are scripted out. Don't waste their time, especially if they are an elected official. So we have to build a bridge, but then once we have made and got to a certain point, we also need to take time to reach back. So
that is so totally correct, Sareeta, and also Councilman Graves. We have to, as we're rising up, we have to make sure we mentor those and we see the leadership abilities of those that are there to rise up. We can rise up together. There is enough for all of us to sit down, and we all have a role to play in this community activism, community engagement, and civic empowerment. And I think that's how I've been able to do the things. I've reached out to elected people, appointed people, and said, hey, I want to learn. I want to learn. And then not only that, make sure you show up and keep your word.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. Show up, stand up, and speak up. So show up when you need to show up, because those are the people who are going to see you that who are elected are going to say, hey, you would be good on a board or commission because you showed up, you were in the room. That would be a good piece of advice I would give you. Stand up. Make sure you stand on your morals, values, and beliefs. Don't back down because you may disagree. That's okay. We're going to disagree, but this is what I stand on, and these are the principles that I have. And stand on those principles. And not only just stand up, make sure that you speak up for those who are disenfranchised. Speak up for the I'm going to preach a little bit, the least, the lost, and left behind. Those are the ones you really got to stand up for. And I think we can all say that together as community leaders here, and all the power we have is, hey, mentorship, bring up the next person. I know me in Urban League, like I've been mentoring every single young lady, and man, hey, you want to go to the next level? This is how you do it.
Right.
You know, this is how you play the game to get the things that you want to get. Because I mean, I moved here to Norfolk over 10 years ago, and I never thought that I would be in the positions of power that I am today. And it's because I reached out to people and said, hey, I want to learn. And not only that, I kept my word and showed up for that meeting. I was there in the room. Hey, I went to city council meetings so city council could see I was actively engaged. I want to be on a board and commission. I want to help my community. So when that name comes up, because city council has to be the one that appoints you to these things, they want to see people who actually show up and put in the work. They don't want somebody who just wants there and just want a title. They want to see people who put in the work. So that would be my advice too.
Can I give some advice?
One more person, then we're gonna move on.
That got good. I was like, I got one more thing.
I yield my time to Angela.
Okay, so don't be going crazy on social media. When you talk about Jason, when you talk about showing up and you talking about being there and doing things, the younger generation you have to understand that y'all are being looked at by the cuspers of us millennials, right? We're young at heart, right? And you cannot be crazy on your social media and expect that I'm going to appoint you to represent me for anything if you crazy acting on your social media. So one of the things that I can always say that I know about Jason and Joe, I get to travel through Joe, and then Jason is always working with the seniors and things like that. And I also get to travel through Danica too. And so, I mean, those are things, be mindful of your social media presence as a young professional, as a millennial, as an up and coming elected official, whatever it is that you want to be. Your social media profile should project the you that you want to be. You might be a hot mess, but everybody doesn't have to know that. Right. And so you want to make sure that you are putting across a professional image as a young person, so that, because I see a whole bunch of stuff on social media, and there's people just from their social media, you know, so you don't want to kill your name before it even gets in the room because of something that you've done on social media that you think nobody is paying attention to. So that Jason, you stirred that one.
And Hampton Roads is very, very small. I want people to realize that. It's very small and people talk. So if you're there, regardless of where you are, make sure that you are putting forth your best self, because you don't know who knows who. And like I said, Hampton Roads is very small. So make sure that wherever you go, you're putting forth a positive image, and they'll say, oh, I always see her at this and that. And trust me, that just showing up, like I think Jason says, it will get you in places. Like I remember just many times like, hey, weren't you at such and such? Would you like to join? So just show up and make sure you're putting, like Angelia said, put council member, I apologize, that you're putting forth. We go way back, but I still give you your respect. Council member Williams Graves said, just make sure you're putting forth your best self, because you don't want your social media to just be your demise.
Yeah, and every phone is a camera.
That is so true. We're going to hop back into the questions. This next question is going to go to you, Tiffany. What is the difference between equity and equality, and why is that so important for our community?
Tiffany, you're mute.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, I thought it keeps popping up in the middle and not at the top where I'm trying to hit the button. So this is a good question. I think it's something that everybody needs to understand, because a lot of people always scream about, we want equal rights, but equity is definitely something that we should be working on, because we're all not in the same place to want or to need equal whatever we want. So equity is also why I work to get Virginia's first statewide minority business commission. So if you haven't heard of it, look it up, or you can reach out to me and I can talk to you about it. But it is talking about equitable resources for minority businesses. So does it mean equality? Because in certain places, the minorities might be 2%. So they, like, why have 50-50 business opportunities if you only make up 2% of the population? So we're talking about bringing minority businesses up to par so we can have an equal playing field, but yet have equitable resources. So the best quote that I've heard about equity is, equality is giving everyone a shoe, and equity is giving everyone a shoe that fits. And I'm sure we've all seen the picture displayed where three people are trying to look over a fence, and they all have the same size box to stand on, but one person's short, one person's tall, one person's like average height. So they all can't see over it. But if you give them different size boxes, which would be equity, then they can see over the fence. So that makes me think of the saying, if you walk a mile in my shoes, right? Well, sometimes that's the barrier to equity. Some people think just because everyone has equal opportunity to drive down the street, that's enough. But we want to drive down a street that has no potholes. We want to drive down a safe street. So we could be driving down one street and it has potholes and all these hurdles in the way to get to point B, and someone else is driving down a smooth street with no red lights, no potholes, no hurdles to get to point B. Public education is an equal right. We all have the right for public education, but equity is the quality of that education. Equity is the quality of the buildings, the resources, and in some cases, especially in the Hampton Roads, how we've been doing, the names of the building. So today we see that anyone requirements to be president. As my daughter tells me, I'm now old enough to run for president. But does that mean we all should? No. But the lack of equity in that process shows we have had one African-American president, and we have had one African-American, well, not African-American, but one Black and Indian VP nominee out of all of these years. So I want you to know this. Equity requires our energy because you have to learn the statistics, you have to learn the data, you have to learn where people are in order to bring them where you want them to be. Some people think equality is enough. Well, we gave them this, or we have this in place. Why isn't that enough? But no, more work has to be done. Like equality is not enough, and they don't understand that more work needs to be done. And the rest of us who do understand, like the ones on this call, we know that equity depends on sweat equity. So the only way to achieve that is through hard work. So, and I'm sure all of us are ready for it and have been doing it for so long.
Tiffany, you must like shoes.
What?
I said, you must like shoes.
I do. We don't want to see my closet. Wait.
Okay, the next question is going to be for Joe. The purpose of this discussion is the price of your vote. And we were clear to not make this about any particular candidate who's running for office right now. However, on the ballot, there is a question that a lot of persons do not understand. And I know we have some people tuning in from other states, so I'm going to be specific. There's on the Virginia ballot. That there's a question on the Virginia ballot that a lot of people do not understand regarding if the Constitution of Virginia should be amended to establish a redistricting commission and what that means for our community. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Yes, and I'm going to be fairly quick. I wanted to be on the record that I agree with everyone, what everyone is saying here, but I want to kind of start my statement by what Tiffany ended with like, should we all be running for office? I don't know what it is with millennials, because I am a millennial, so I'm going to speak. I don't know. We think it's like some throne at the end of the road where it's glitz and glamour and you get all this power and respect. If I can tell you anything about elected office, though I'm not elected, if you take the memory of your mother telling you to pick up your socks from the corner or do the dishes, and you multiply that by 1,000, that's what serving in elected office is. I mean, Angela's sitting here, Tiffany's sitting here, they're smiling, but it's a thankless job. So if you're really considering that, even boards and commissions, it's a thankless job. So I don't want to be on the record encouraging anyone to do something if you don't know the gravity of it. I think a lot of young people are like, okay, it's my time to run. And I often talk to the older elected officials too. They didn't get into it until they were 50 or 60, so I understand where they're standing at. But if we take off too early and we get engaged way too early, and you realize that at the end of this tunnel, there's no light and there's no first place trophy because we're instant gratification. You know, I get to the end and it's over. But okay, that's that. Talking about your constitutional amendment, number one. I'm not going to say what year it was, but historically, when the General Assembly, the Virginia General Assembly, sat down to redraw new districts, it was a deal struck. The Democrats were allowed to draw the Senate maps, and the Republicans were allowed to draw the House maps. So therefore, at the time, you ended up with these crazy gerrymandered districts. How the had a 89th district or the 80th district or the 79th district. Steve Harris had parts of Norfolk and never stepped into Norfolk, things of that magnitude. And the Senate did too. What happened was the Democrats were in charge of the Senate, and that's why you had a strong controlled Democratic Senate. And the House was in control of by the Republicans. Well, as voting kept going on, a Democrat stepped down from the Senate and they gave controls to both chambers of control to the Republicans. And the way the districts were drawn, there were challenges made to the court that said that a lot of these districts are racially gerrymandered. Jay Jones's district, Joe Lindsay's district, Cliff Hayes, mostly the back districts. What they said was they took people and tried to force them into a district to not only make it democratically secure, but also make it a Black district. Hence, now there's a movement, and I know Brian Cannon pretty well. He's with Virginia 2021, where he says, let's forget all that. Let's scratch all the history and let's start over from scratch, where we have a redistricting commission that's allowed to draw the maps fairly. That sounds like great information on the surface. I talked with Brian, I understand what he's saying, but there's also a movement within the African-American community of leadership at the General Assembly that feels as though it's too vague. We fought so hard to have the few seats that we have. I don't know if you guys know it. We have one African-American male on the Senate. He represents Norfolk. That's Lionel Sproul. You have Louise Lucas. You have Mamie Locke, Jennifer McCullough, whatever. I don't want to count them all, but on my hand, you might have less than 5 senators in the entire Virginia Senate. And then on the House side, you might have 10 to 15 members on the House. But what happened was those people at that time in history decided to write the districts or draw the districts that best benefited them. So what does that look like? Just using us here. I want to make sure Angela Williams gets reelected to the 101th district. I want to make sure that Jason gets reelected to his Senate district, or Tiffany to her district. I called you in and drew the district based on who I know will vote for you. And what this constitutional amendment is doing is trying to take that power away from the General Assembly and give it to an independent citizen-led group to do that. And that sounds good, which is good, but at the same time, you got to make sure that if you have more interest in African Americans being elected to the General Assembly, we have to make sure that we are protecting those interests as well, because you don't want them to take 50% of Jay Jones's African American district or Joe Lindsay's district and give some to Chris Dolly and then pick some of Virginia Beach that would never vote for an African American in the 90th district. So it's arguments to both sides, and I just want you guys to know a lot of people have asked that question. Just moving forward, that it's all about the redistricting. Some of it was already found unconstitutional. Some of your districts already in Hampton Roads on the House side were already redrawn. But moving forward, after the census that a lot of us already were pushing for, we're going to use those numbers to draw the new maps. And depending on how they're drawn, will impact our state politics for the next 10 to 15 years. So that's just something that as you walk into the booth, just take all those situations in account of what could happen with that constitutional amendment.
So that actually leads back to the very first question about the census, because that's a every 10-year situation where the House and Senate districts get redrawn. And fair is relative. And I use the analogy, I sell real estate. I'll give a plug, just open my own real estate firm, Homes by Angelia in Norfolk. And someone will say, well, I want an affordable house. Okay, well, what do you think is affordable? Oh, $350,000, $400,000. Well, to some people that's affordable and to some people that's not. Fair is the same way. Fair is relative to who you're talking to. And so those districts are redrawn every 10 years based on that head count of census, that population count as to how many, especially your House of Representatives and even in your Senate. Cities can pick up or lose a Senate seat. They can pick up House of Representative seats. They can lose House of Representative seats. And especially in the House of Representatives, those seats are based on population. And so you could very well lose representation if you don't take the time to fill out your census.
Thank you for that. Next question.
I can hear you, Verlaine.
Oh, go ahead.
We couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was saying thank you for that. That was definitely very helpful from both of you. The next question was going towards Tiffany. I know we're wrapping up on time, so we're going to try and get through just a couple of questions, 2 questions. But Tiffany, this next one, is party alignment a requirement for running for office?
So party alignment, depending on what I actually know for any office that I know of, but party alignment, it matters because our system is built that way. We have especially on the federal level, we have our 2 biggest ones, Democrat and Republican, but they have Libertarian, they have Independents, and they have other parties out there. But it does matter because, like birds of a feather flock together. So as it shouldn't be the determining factor in someone running for elected office or for you to vote for somebody. You shouldn't just vote for someone because they're Democrat. You shouldn't just vote for someone because they're Republican. You should vote for them on their values and what they've done in the community and what they stand for and what you believe they will do for you and for whatever they're running for, and to make sure that they know the duties of what they're running for. So many people run for office and they're saying they can do all these things, and I'm like, but that's not the responsibility of that position. So just being educated on the positions that they're running for, so you can know if they're just like Joe was saying, if they just want to be in the limelight and have their name mentioned at events, or if they really want to serve the people, because elected officials are public servants in the end. But again, going back to party alignment, we have to be able to work across the table. We have to be able to work with everybody. And Republicans have done things that have benefited Virginia. Democrats have done things that benefit Virginia. But however, party alignment can give you some indication on important issues, right? We know the Dem platform stands for certain things. We know the Republican platform stands for certain things. And if you don't know, you can look it up. You can look at the Democratic Party plan and you can see what they stand for. And then you can go look even further and see what their actions are to reach what their plan is, the high level plan. So you can actually look that up. But there's no requirement for it. Like my office as a constitutional officer, I run as a Democrat, but when I am actually on the ballot, it really matters for primaries if there's another Democrat running against me. But once I get my general election, I don't have a DRI next to my name. I just have Tiffany Boyle for, Commissioner of Revenue. And then for your local offices, depending on what their charter is, most of them run independent anyway, because they're running to cover the whole city or the whole county instead of, a particular party. So that's it.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Tiffany. So the next question, I'm going to merge it. It's for Mr. Inge. We had a question in the chat that was asking about if there were any nonpartisan organizations or groups that anyone could recommend in regards to researching people on the ballot or what certain parties stand for. And I'm merging that in with your question, Jason, because I think that it would be great for you to elaborate on the Urban League and the role it plays during the election season, and especially with working and recognizing who the the elected officials are. And maybe you could also touch on the value add of joining the Urban League as well.
Of course, definitely. So to answer that question, so I always like to give that disclaimer. I didn't give it at the beginning. I should have, knowing I'm president. The National Urban League, its affiliates and auxiliary organizations like us, we're all nonpartisan. We focus on the issues that affect Black and brown and underserved communities throughout the United States. So when it comes to organizations that you should look at for nonpartisanship, not only the Urban League, but also the NAACP, voter411.org. They don't take positions on candidates. They look at the policies that are affecting the communities. And those are the organizations you can go to. Our website is www.ulhryp.org. You can go there and you research the candidates, as well as go to the National Urban League website, which is nul.org. You can go there and research the candidates on the national level. And then also, hey, tonight we have 2 town halls that are going on, one on ABC and one on NBC. I won't even go into those details. I digress on that. But both the candidates will be speaking tonight. And this is your opportunity to learn about them and learn about, hey, what is Joe Biden going to do for me? What is President Donald Trump going to do for me? You know, this is really a distinctive choice between our nation and who we think is best going to lead it. I also, just giving a part with me, the value add with the Urban League. Let me give you my quick testimony. I moved here to Hampton Roads probably it's been about 11 years now. I moved here. I didn't know anyone. I moved here for opportunities because I just got out of college. And when I moved here, the first organization I joined, I was like, hey, let me look and see what organizations are out here. I learned about the Urban League. I learned about that through the great partnerships that we have with Geico. I was working at Geico at the time, and they were a big donor of the Urban League. So, hey, they had meetings. I went out. I learned about what the Urban League did. Our core things are jobs, justice, education, housing, and healthcare. That is what we advocate for. And it's not just African Americans. We're advocating for all underserved communities. That means our Hispanic brothers and sisters, our LGBTQA plus brothers and sisters, and securing self-reliance, power, and civil rights. We don't want to just see, like Tiffany said, equality. We want to see equity. We want to see the real fruits of making sure everybody has the shoes that fit and everybody has the right resources to go ahead. But me, I am why I am today is because of the Urban League. If it was not for me joining the Urban League, I don't think I would be in the positions I am today. It has provided me the leadership skills to be where I am, to walk into city council and talk with my city council members, to go in, talk with the governor, go to the General Assembly, and then walk into these boardrooms, talking with the most powerful, influential movers and shakers of Hampton Roads. And I talk in confidence. It has definitely prepared me. If you ever are interested in joining the Urban League, it will cultivate you not only just from the boardroom, but also to the ballot box. I can attest another thing, me, Councilwoman Graves, and Joe, we've all graduates of the Sourcing Institute. The Urban League prepared me for that prestigious institute through the University of Virginia. That provides the pipeline for people who want to go on to higher aspirations in political and policy. So definitely, the Urban League is, I could go on and on about the Urban League and what it's done for me, but I say join, learn, grow. Everybody has time, talent, and treasure they can invest. And it's really the urgency of now. What are you doing? No one can sit on the sidelines. We all have a role to play in this game. Either we're going to move our nation forward or we're going to reverse back. And I want to see our nation move forward. And the Urban League has been doing that. Along with the NAACP, Joe, he's the president, he can tell you, we're sister organizations, and we've been around in this fight for over 100 years and fighting for our communities. And I can guarantee you that we may not be the person that's out there in front of the news camera, but we're somewhere in that crowd. We're in that boardroom. We're in the room making sure when these decisions are being made, we're there representing our communities. So never think that we're not there, because we're always there in the room and we're at the table.
And I have to agree. So I was his predecessor, or two before him, Carlos, I was his vice president. So the Urban League truly shaped me into who I am today. I started way back in a program called BEAT, the Black Executive Exchange Program. They don't even have that anymore. And then I was blessed to be able to work with our new lights, our young people. So they teach you about advocacy and about, you know, being in the room, being prepared to be there. And so I know I would not be where I am today had it not been for the Urban League. And one thing I love about the Urban League, I can go from anywhere from here to Washington State, and there is a network that is there. People don't underestimate your network. Just the other day, one of my friends in New York, he was like, Sareeta, there's a job you might want to apply for. So job opportunities, just general training. I'm also a graduate of the Urban League Emerging Leader Program, and that is a program to build the next generation of nonprofit leaders, Urban League CEOs. And so, like Jason said, I would not be where I am today had it not been for the Urban League. So NAACP, Urban League, all these organizations have been around for years, and they're literally training grounds. You can go in like me, a poor country girl with a dream, and they will polish you and shape you into something that you could never imagine. And you will be in rooms with people that you could, presidents. We've been in rooms with all the congressional members, LPC, Legislative Policy Conference. So all of these things are, just for the mere, just joining up, doing your part. You will learn how to fundraise. You will learn how to activate. You will learn how to organize. You'll learn how to do voter registration. And I can go on and on, because when I tell you, once you are an urban leaguer, you will always be an urban leaguer. So shout out to you, Jason, for continuing the fight.
And I will end with this, because I know we be mindful of time and everyone else. Hey, I just got appointed to the Virginia State Appraisal Board, and that board oversees all the appraisals and appraisers in the whole Commonwealth of Virginia. When I got that call from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, I was not expecting that. When she called and said, Jason, we want to appoint you to this board. And it was like, because of what you were doing in Urban League, because you showed up to the General Assembly advocating for the policies in the 757. You sat in front of the governor, you sat in front of myself, the Secretary of the Commonwealth, and you advocated. We see your passion. We want you. And when I walked in that room yesterday, I was confident knowing that, hey, when I walked in, the Honorable Jason Inge, sitting down knowing that, hey, I played an impact in getting here. And it wasn't just because of me, it was because of the heart, blood, sweat, and tears of the people and the shoulders I stand on.
Absolutely.
That is what it comes down to. It comes down to the shoulders of Mark Morial and the Urban League. It comes down to Whitney M. Young. It comes down to Vernon Jones and the NAACP. It comes down to all of these people and the shoulders that we stand on is where we are today. If it wasn't for their blood, sweat, and tears, I would not be able to sit here this day and say I am where I am today.
So we're gonna, thank you for that, Jason. We're gonna close out with our final question. And this is gonna be open to the whole panel, but we wanna start off with Sareeta. And so we're gonna combine these last two questions where it says, after the election, there are a lot of things at stake. What do you believe is at stake in November? And then how do we hold our elected officials accountable afterwards?
What is at stake? Our democracy. That's what's at stake. If you've been paying attention to the laws that are being passed and the things that are happening in the country right now, our democracy is at stake. So we need to get out here just for the sake of that, just to save that. Racism is at an all-time high. We need a leader who will come in and try to calm the fears, try to unite us. Now, when it comes to holding our elected officials accountable, one, you need to know who your legislators are. Many people don't understand how legislation works. I remember when I was a fellow in the mayor's office, there was a lady who called, and what she says, hello, put the mayor on the phone. I said, ma'am, unfortunately, that's not how this works. And so she says, I have a cat in my tree and the mayor needs to come get it. I voted for her. I said, ma'am, I'm sorry about your cat being in the tree. We do have animal control that I can get over there. I can get you. She was like, no, I voted for the mayor. So she didn't, you know, the mayor's not coming to get the cat out your tree. But beyond that, know who your legislators are. Know the power that they hold. Sometimes they're expecting people to do certain things that is not within their power. So you need to understand what the power is. Know how to reach them. Know how to email them. Know their websites. Public servants, which I am by trade, by life. Public servants work for the people. So therefore, they are there not because it's an easy job. Council member, she can tell you, Commissioner Boyle, she'll tell you, it's not an easy job. I've not been an elected official, but I've been in elected roles. Jason can tell you, it is a long, thankless job, but you do it because you know the work that you're doing pays off and is impacting people's lives. So know who their legislators are, know how to contact them, and then know what their platforms are. You cannot hold people accountable if you don't even know what they ran on. And then once you learn what they ran on, hold them accountable. Show up to the meetings, show up to the city council meeting, show up to the working meeting that council member was speaking about. If you cannot sit around and complain if you're not doing an active part. Some of these are done online, so you don't even have to show up. Just be active. Be active. You can't hold them. If you can't hold them accountable, 1, if you don't know who they are, 2, you don't know how to contact them, 3, if you don't know what their platforms are, and if you're not just showing up. So hold them accountable by knowing what their platforms are, showing up to the public events, and if they're not doing what they need to do, start making noise. When I tell you, if you tweet somebody, they will get somebody on their staff is going to get back to you. One thing about the mayor, she had a whole team that dealt with social media because their image is important. And so that's all I have to say. Know who they are, know how to reach them, know what their platform is, and do your part by holding them accountable, by showing up. And when they're not doing what they need to do, write them, call them, and just keep asking questions. That's my take.
So I agree. I totally agree with Sareeta in terms of holding your elected officials accountable and knowing what it is that they stand for. I will say this, a lot of people run for office and win for office. And I can tell you that when somebody runs for office, they don't know what they think they know. All right, I can tell you that all the stuff I thought I knew when I ran for office and when I actually got elected, I got elected on a Tuesday. I was sworn in on a Friday because this was a special election. And then I had to serve on Tuesday. And how things work and what deals were already put in place and who's friends with who and where the paper clips are buried. They don't know where the paper clips are buried, much less any dead bodies. So I would say to you, allow for people to grow and change,
Right.
allow for them. But I think that it is also important for elected officials to communicate their perspective on certain issues. And I've been maybe guilty, maybe not guilty of doing that in terms of if I feel strongly about something, to communicating why I feel the way that I feel about it. And knowing that it is a thankless job, and I know I'm not going to please everybody. And then there are some things that, you know, and you just can't say, it just happens. That's just kind of the way that it is. But I would say to people, don't become disenfranchised and disenchanted if one situation doesn't go the way you want it to go. There are a lot of things that your elected officials are in charge of. And I go back to, we're not always going to agree on every single thing. And so just stay engaged, stay in touch with your elected official, give them your input. Oftentimes constituents help me to see things from a different perspective because I know that I don't know it all. And when they take the time to send those emails, I take the time to read them. Now, I wish some of the emails would be a little shorter, but just get to the point. just tell me what your point is, right? Get to the point. Because in council, we don't have all the staff that a lot of times the state and local elected officials are. And depending on if your mayor runs the city or if you have a city manager with the staff, it's really going to determine, you know, how much ability they have to, you know, sit through all that information. Right. But stay engaged no matter what happens. The worst thing that you can do is get one no and then just walk away forever, because what's at stake in November is the rest of our lives. I was talking to some young people at Norfolk State, and I told them, I said, you all have to vote. You all have to vote. I'm 48 years old, and God willing, I will live another 48 years. But what is going to be most effective is a difference for me at 48 than it is for somebody at 18, at 23, at 28. You've got more of your life to live than I do. And so what happens in this 4-year election is going to determine education. It's going to determine women's rights. It's going to determine racial equity, racial equality. It's going to determine all of that. And it's really going to determine what kind of country we have and what kind of country folks are going to live in. You may not like either candidate, because I've heard that nonsense too. Well, it's Satan and it's Lucifer. Okay, well, pick one, but vote. All right, pick one and vote. Pick the one that has the most ideals that match yours. No candidate is perfect. Not a single one of them. And everybody's done something. And if you really, really think about it, and this will be my closing point, if you really, really think about it, the you that you are at 28 is not the you were at 18. The me that I am at 48 is not the me that I was at 18. And I see things differently. Times change, situations change. People have different experiences, and they may have felt one way at one time, and they may have shifted course. And so you want to pay attention to where people are right now and what they are doing in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, not pulling some nonsense back from 25 years ago, because we're not where we were 25 years ago. So don't get disenchanted. Stay engaged, stay involved, and no matter what you do, vote. Vote for the whole entire ballot. Don't just cherry pick and choose, but vote, vote, vote.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Yes. Anyone else want to add on? Any other closing remarks? Go ahead, Tiffany, and then Jason.
So just really quickly, Sareeta, I love democracy. I tell people that all the time when they want to bring up all these other issues. I'm like, no, the first thing is, I don't think you want this country to turn into a different type of country, because I've been to third world countries. I've been second world countries. I've lived in a few. We're not built, you know, with our culture, with our materialism, with how we like to live and the money we like to make. We're not built to be like other countries, and the way we're headed, we could definitely go that way. So I think that is a huge thing, democracy. But another big thing for me, and I apologize that my dog is barking. I think she's tired of me being on Zoom, but is standards. Like, I feel like if we continue to allow the man in office to be in office, our standards are going to be so low, we will not recognize what standards mean anymore. And it's a trickle effect. It affects how we, you know, educate our children. It affects the resources that we require from our children. And I'm just saying that as a mom of a 15-year-old and seeing the education now and seeing how the kids talk and seeing what is expected of them. You know, so, and they're all, well, if the president doesn't have to learn how to speak in complete sentences, why should we? If the president can speak like this about whatever he feels like, why can't we? So it just, and then the same thing with other elected officials. You know, these kids are watching with social media. My child can follow a school board member. My child can follow a city council person, and they can see what their lifestyle is. So as we feel, oh, well, we can do what we want, but we can't, or we can, just don't post it. But, you know, it affects them. We are examples to them. And now everybody's like a mini celebrity. So it's not just NBA stars. It's not just NFL players. It's not just actors and actresses. We all are mini celebrities in our own little world that can affect other people and have influence on other people. So if we continue down this path that we're going with our current people in office, our standards will be way low. And I don't know how we get back from that, which will affect us, because our children are going to be the ones taking care of us. And then our children's children will be the ones taking care of us. So if we don't have higher standards for them now, how is that going to be for us in the future?
So I'm gonna speak right into the camera, right to the people that are watching and will watch this. It's the urgency of now.
Absolutely.
This election is the election where jobs are on the line, and saying that essential workers matter, and saying that people deserve to be paid livable wages. Justice is on the line, saying that Black lives do matter, that children that are fleeing across our borders do not deserve to be in cages while their parents are thrown back across because they are escaping poverty. Housing is on the line, making sure that safe, accessible housing is not just a privilege just for a certain class of people, but for all people. Education is on the line. Right now, we are in an era of disinformation where you can say anything and an alternative fact that is clearly, blatantly false. You have people that are saying that we did not assassinate the world's worst terrorist, Osama bin Laden, that it was a body double. It is ridiculous that we have these type of falsehoods going around. And most of all, healthcare is on this ballot.
Absolutely.
A woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her body. Reproductive rights are on the line. Healthcare for 450 Virginians when we expanded Medicaid in Virginia is on the line. We know that, hey, right now, 7 million people have been infected with COVID-19. Out of that, over 217,000 human beings, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles have died. Their life and legacy is what is on the line. I want to tell you to vote now. If you're a registered voter, go out and vote now, vote early. And if you're going to wait until election day, make sure that you take more than just yourself to the polls, because this election is not just about Joe Biden and Donald Trump and Joe Jurgensen. This is about American democracy and where do we go going forward. Like Tiffany said, this is the standard. America was the house on the hill that has led this world in prosperity. And now we're looking at we're going back in the past. So this is very simple on the ballot. Do you agree that we should move forward as a nation where we value every human life, where Black lives matter, where healthcare matters, jobs, justice, and education matter? That is what is on the line. Make sure that you research your candidates. Make sure you thoroughly understand where they stand, because if they don't have a position of where they stand, then I don't know where they stand at all, because now this is where we take a stand. Black people, I'm going to end with this. Black people, you have seen advertisement. You have seen people come into our communities. That tells you the Black vote matters. It's the most important vote in this election. So make sure that not only that the candidates, they work for your vote. Just don't think that just because I'm Black, I'm going to vote a particular way or for a particular candidate. And make sure that, hey, you need to earn and work my vote. And like Angelia said, Councilwoman Graves has said, hey, vote all the way down the ballot. Don't just vote for president. Make sure you vote for senator in Virginia. Make sure if you're in Norfolk, hey, they have 3 other questions on there, 2 constitutional ones, the one about gerrymandering and the one about if they want to have taxation. And then in Norfolk, we have the casino question. So make sure that you vote all the way down the line. Do not leave anything out. And if somebody is at the poll intimidating you, you're going to go in and you're going to vote. And then if you have to call law enforcement or whatever, then you do that if you feel that your safety is at risk. But you're going to make sure that you vote, because too many people have died for us to be able to sit here and not go vote. And I'm going to say it like this, excuse my French, I try that, but you got to get off your ass and vote.
Absolutely.
We can't sit this one out. Just like, read what the shirt says.
Don't mess it up.
I'm gonna leave it at that. But do not mess this up. I don't care what the polls say.
Right.
It wasn't so important, they wouldn't be trying to take the right away from you, and they wouldn't be trying to water it down. Nobody wants something worthless, and nobody fights for something worthless. If it wasn't so important and so worthwhile and valuable, they wouldn't be trying to take it away.
Agreed. That's what Danica and I were talking about that earlier, how important clearly our vote is, because they're trying so hard.
So hard.
That's a clue.
Yeah. I do want to open up, just Joe, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, unmute.
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Well, we definitely want to thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for being able to provide so much information. We will be sharing this, of course, with our audience as well. And you guys were phenomenal. You guys provided so much information, a lot of the resources that we definitely needed, so that we are prepared for the election, as well as after the election, and what we can do to stay involved in our community and definitely make an impact. Danica, did you want to add anything for like closing remarks or anything?
All I wanted to say was thank you again to all of our panelists as well as our participants. I know that everyone in this new normal kind of gets a little zoomed out, but I appreciate everyone for recognizing the importance of this moment and where we are presently. And as me and Verlaine had discussed when we were putting this together, this information is needed. It's needed in our community. And a lot of this is discussion and conversation that needs to continue beyond the election, because we have a whole new generation of persons who will be eligible to vote coming in. And one way that we arm ourselves and being able to reach back and pull people forward is with information. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you again this evening for answering the tough questions, making us more knowledgeable about the opportunities and accessibility as it relates to getting in contact and reaching out to our public officials. I am completely just floored with all of this mass amount of information. And thank you all again. And your time and your service has been appreciated.
And we want to thank you guys for putting this together. You guys always, I may not be there all the time, even though I'll be in 757 this weekend, but I've been watching you guys, and you guys have been putting together awesome events that keep young people informed and engaged. So keep doing what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Well, awesome. Have a great night, everyone. And thank you to our attendees as well for joining us today. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a great evening.
Have a good evening.
Guys.
Go vote.
Absolutely. There's no choice. There's no choice. You have to vote.